So today we're going to talk about portable grinders. What I have in front of you today are two of the most common sizes of the portable grinder. The portable grinder is sometimes called the angle grinder, but it's a pretty straightforward machine used for grinding a variety of different things. The two grinders we have are the 7-inch grinder, which is a big size grinder for heavy duty, things like that. You may have some of those in some of the shops, but the most common and easier to use grinder is the smaller 4-inch grinder. The 4-inch grinder is really easy to handle, move around, light and things, so it's great for students to learn on especially. Now the 4-inch grinder uses one of these, which is a grinding disc. And the grinding disc is just what it sounds like. It's a disc that's set up in carbide that you can grind metal and things with. And so the grinder is pretty easy to look at and use. It's got a handful of very basic pieces to it. It's got a motor casing and base handle. It's got a steadying handle, a guard, and then your wheel will fit on the shaft. We'll show you how to put a wheel on it in just a minute. This grinder right here has an on-off switch that's called a paddle switch, and you push this little lever down and you squeeze that, and that's what turns the grinder on. Some of the other grinders you may encounter may have an on-off switch on the side somewhere that you just push on, like some of the other tools. But the paddle switches are really nice, and they're actually safer, because if you hit a piece and the grinder jumps, you let go and it automatically shuts off. And so I really like the paddle grinder switches better. But other than that, that's pretty much it. The grinder is pretty easy to use and pretty easy to install. You can see that this grinder has a shaft, and that's what the wire wheel, or what the grinding wheel fits on. The grinding wheel will go on. Typically there's some kind of a smaller collar like this that fits on over top and locks in. And then you take your grinding wheel and put it on. And then you take your other tightening collar and just thread that onto the shaft. Once you've got that threaded onto the shaft, you're going to push this. There's usually a little locking button, just like some of the other tools, that locks that shaft into place so that you can finish turning on your wheel. And then you're either going to have a tool that looks like this or like this, depending on the size and grinding wheel you have. But basically these two little knobs on here fit into the holes on the last part of that tightening collar. And basically you just tighten that down so that it is snugly on there. Okay? Once that's on there, the last thing to do is adjust your guard based on where you think the sparks are going to fly and where you want to guard from that. And so this guard will sit like this, so if you're grinding like this, the sparks are guarded so they're not hitting you in the body. If you're grinding straight on, you can move the guard so it sits more like that, and the sparks again are protected. And so that guard does move a little bit for those reasons, okay? Either in that position or the straight on position. Other than that, that's the simple ways to set up your grinder. The only other thing that you may use on the grinding wheel is you may not have a grinding wheel, you may have a cutting wheel, which is a thinner version of this, or you may replace both of those and put on a wire brush for taking off rust or paint or some of those kinds of things. The wire brush just threads right on to the shaft, and you just use the appropriate wrench to tighten that on. Other than that, that's the grinder.
Okay.
So now we're ready to go ahead and grind. We've made all of our adjustments. You can see I've got this piece of metal I want to grind some paint off of. I've used a set of locking pliers to clamp that good and solid to the bench. I made my adjustments because I know I'm going to stand like this, and so the guard is here, so it's guarding from the sparks flying and hitting me. I'm plugged in and ready to go. I've made sure that my handle is secure, and I'm ready. So we'll give you a quick demo. One of the other things you can see is I'm going to use a face shield The face shield is perfect because you don't know where those sparks are going to go, but I still have my safety glasses on underneath the shield. Got to have both. Don't forget that. Here we go. Now you can see as I was using that, I was using a great back and forth motion. Be sure you're always moving back and forth, and that's the way you're grinding. The other piece too is before I set that down, I make sure the wheel comes to a complete stop. Other than that, that's the basics on how to use the grinder. We'll practice more when we get to class.